When I first started ear training, I struggled a lot, just like many of you. Those early challenges led me on an 18-year journey of research and practice, ultimately developing a unique, science-based method that has helped over 2,000 musicians transform their ear training. Some in just weeks, others in months or a few years. This method, backed by cognitive science and years of refinement, is now trusted by many musicians, music teachers, and music colleges around the world, and is rated as excellent on Trustpilot. But this video isn't about the method itself, it's about the key insights I discovered along the way. Insights that can help you transform your ear training, no matter your current approach or level. These lessons have made a huge difference for thousands of musicians, and honestly, I wish I'd known them when I was starting out. The biggest secret I discovered over 18 years is that most musicians don't truly understand the thought process behind great ear training skills. They don't know how top musicians can improvise or recognize notes and chords by ear so quickly and intuitively. This misunderstanding creates a web of smaller issues that lead to ineffective practice and lack of progress. And I know this firsthand. I was guilty of it too. I spent nearly 10 years struggling with ear training, practicing intervals, and using ineffective methods. Only after discovering the core truths I'm about to share did I start making significant progress. Once you know and address these misconceptions, you can start seeing real improvement too. One of the most common traps for musicians is the trial and error approach. This is when you pick up your instrument to transcribe a song, then play the song on Spotify or whatever, and then play note after note on your instrument, trying to match what you hear until you find the right one. Here's an example of what that looks like. Okay, let's try to find the notes. Nope. That's the first note. Okay. The main problem with this approach is that it only trains a very basic skill called pitch matching, your ability to hear a note and find it on your instrument. This skill alone won't develop a well-rounded musical ear. If you want to be able to improvise or hear a musical part and play it instantly, you first need to train the mental processes behind ear training. So what's the secret? Practice recognizing melodies and chords by ear alone. This approach builds the mental framework and thought processes needed to truly understand and internalize the musical language. Without this, you're only reinforcing your reliance on your instrument, and your ear training skills will always remain limited. I get it though. Recognizing notes and chords without using your instrument sounds impossible at first. It feels like something only the naturally gifted can do, right? But that's not true. I couldn't do it when I started, and now I can. Just like the thousands of musicians we've helped, you can absolutely do it too. The problem is that most musicians don't know how to approach this kind of practice, so they end up overthinking it. This leads us to the second secret, streamlining your thought process by feeling instead of thinking. When most musicians try to recognize music by ear, they rely too heavily on logic. They start analyzing each interval between the notes or take all sorts of complex mental paths, ultimately overthinking everything. This approach is overwhelming because our brain can't handle that level of analysis in real time. I was guilty of this for years. I believed that breaking down each note in a chord or calculating intervals in a melody was how great musicians did it. But that couldn't be further from the truth, and it kept me stuck for a decade. So what's the real secret? It's streamlining your thought process by relying on feelings instead of logic. Music is the language of emotion. It's built on tension, resolution, happiness, sadness, and everything in between. To recognize music intuitively, you need to connect with those feelings. This might sound a bit abstract, but I'll explain how to do it in just a moment. For now, think of it this way. When you recognize colors, you don't use logic. You don't analyze how far apart red is from blue or consider the interval between them. You just know. It's a direct association. The same principle applies to recognizing notes and chords by ear. You need to stop overanalyzing and start relying on feelings. This shift is essential for developing intuitive ear training skills and will truly transform your listening ability. So how do we put this into practice? That's where the third secret comes in. The third secret is shifting your focus from intervals to scale degrees. Most musicians believe that mastering intervals is the golden key to ear training. I thought so too, until I delved deeper into the cognitive science behind ear training and tested it with some great musicians myself. What I found was surprising. These musicians weren't using interval-based processes or calculating distances between notes to recognize music. They were doing something that might seem similar on the surface, but is fundamentally different. They recognize notes and chords based on their position within the key, relying primarily on feeling. Cognitive science has demonstrated in multiple studies that each note and chord carries a unique, consistent feeling based on its position within the key. In Western music, no matter the genre, there's always a key in place. The key includes 7 notes and 7 chords. Each of the 7 notes and 7 basic chords has its own distinct, unique feeling. For example, the tonic, the first degree, always has that feeling of resolution, like coming home. The 6th degree has its own unique emotional quality, the 7th another, and so on. These feelings remain consistent whether you're in A major, C major, G major, or any other key. Understanding and internalizing these 7 core feelings is like learning the alphabet of the musical language. And the good news, it's manageable. Only 7 distinct feelings to internalize. This foundation allows you to recognize music by feeling rather than by overanalyzing with logic or calculating intervals. This is how great musicians intuitively identify notes and chords and speak the language of music fluently. This shift makes your training more intuitive, reliable, and efficient. But there's more. Interval exercises not only foster overthinking and overwhelming analysis, they're also counterproductive for beginner and intermediate musicians, while they can be beneficial to very advanced musicians. If you can't recognize a melody or chord progression quickly and easily by ear alone without any instrument, interval exercises are way too advanced for you. This was one of the main reasons why I was stuck for nearly a decade, and it's an issue that hundreds of our students have faced before switching to our method. In fact, in our training, we advise students to avoid thinking about intervals altogether. Focusing on intervals at an early stage prevents musicians from experiencing and internalizing the unique feelings of the scale degrees. That's why they're counterproductive for beginners and intermediates. And this leads me to the most important secret of all, the one that will make the biggest difference in your ear training journey. To develop your ear training skills, it's absolutely essential to follow an effective, step-by-step training path. The most important insight is understanding that ear training skills develop in stages, much like a pyramid. You need a solid foundation before you can build more advanced skills on top of it. Many musicians mistakenly believe they are practicing step by step, but often are not. For example, they think they need to learn small intervals first and then move to larger ones. But recognizing distant notes is not inherently more difficult. So the key is to follow a truly step-by-step training path that mirrors how these cognitive skills naturally develop. For example, before you can recognize scale degrees and chord degrees by their feelings, you need to master foundational skills such as pitch matching, singing the scale, recognizing the tonic, and retaining the tonic. Without these basics, it's impossible to accurately internalize and recognize the 7 core feelings of the scale degrees and their corresponding chords. This progression is essential, but many musicians get stuck by trying to run before they can walk. This issue applies even if you're practicing solfege or functional ear training. While those methods are better than interval exercises, they still lack a structured step-by-step approach. They offer concepts and exercises, but don't provide a clear path to analyze your current level, guide you on what to work on next, and ensure you're building skills in the right sequence. Many of our students who came from solfège or functional ear training backgrounds found our method life-changing for this reason alone. So the secret to consistent and fast ear training progress is following a clear, structured path that builds one skill upon the next, ensuring you don't miss any steps. If you like what you've seen so far and would like our help with these challenges, we created a free online workshop where you can assess your current skill level and receive science-based exercises and strategies tailored to your needs. By the end of the workshop, you'll know exactly what steps to take to significantly improve your ear training skills quickly. Click the link below to register for free. If you're not quite ready for our workshop yet, check out this video where I explain the first ear training goal every musician should focus on and how to achieve it.